Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the match preview. I'm Andrew Musgrove, joined as usual by John Gibson. Fulham, the visitors to St James's Park this Saturday is Newcastle United. Hope to get back to winning ways at home. John, welcome back to the podcast. Nice to see you. How are you keeping? Are you well?
Well, I'm good. Normal service resumed down at Southampton, so I'm feeling back in the land of the living, Andrew.
And how important, John, was it for Newcastle United to get back to winning ways against Southampton and then hopefully continue that as well on Saturday against Fulham?
Oh, 100%. I don't think I ever doubted that it would happen because it was Southampton and because Newcastle. I mean, Southampton were as awful as we expected, and we were as good as we expected NUFC to be. But it was absolutely critical. It wouldn't have bared thinking about in not getting 3 points and getting that expectation up. But now we've won 10 of the last 11, which is absolutely phenomenal. And to me, it seems we're entering a pivotal time of the season because in 4 days, we've got Fulham at home and we've got Arsenal at home. And I won't say make or break because if we win them both, we haven't won anything. We've taken a step towards the Champions League. We're in a Wembley final. But defeats would break us. If we lose to Arsenal by enough goals, that's a League Cup finished again. If we don't take 3 points out of Fulham, having had poor results at home with Bournemouth, West Ham, etc., then we'll be too far behind. So it is a huge uh, 4 days of the season, capital gains, both against two London sides. London pride there to be punctured, I think, and I'm confident going into it. I'm confident, but yeah, I think it's a big, big time in a season. When you look back on a season and say that made us or that broke us, I think this weekend, in the beginning of next week, is going to be that.
And how easy or difficult do you think it is for Eddie Howe to make sure that the players are focused solely on Saturday and they're not letting Tuesday creep into their mind? Because lots of our viewers and listeners, and you and I, John, we can be forgiven for thinking ahead and maybe even thinking further ahead than Wednesday, with maybe thinking about a weekend in London. But for the players, they've got to keep focused on their job in hand, and that is Fulham first and foremost.
Yes, it is. I don't think that's difficult with this bunch because they seem to take it one step at a time. And there's a very big reason why it won't be difficult because they still remember Bournemouth. And this is the first game at home since Bournemouth. So I don't think you're going to be concentrating too much on Arsenal. You're going to be concentrating very much on Fulham. And of course, if you don't get Fulham right, what's the atmosphere like? What's the feeling like going into the Arsenal game? The one thing that he's got to concentrate on eventually is making certain when we do play Arsenal and we have beaten Fulham, please, that we don't think because we've got a 2-0 lead, that's all over and we've just got to go in and soft shoe through an hour and a half and we're at Wembley. I think that's the bigger concern. I think having lost so comprehensively at home in the last game, nobody's going to take Fulham very lightly because that would be extremely stupid. And there's a need to keep going because Champions League's on a knife edge. It really is on a knife edge. I mean, I'm not just talking about Europe, but the ultimate prize of the Champions League. And to get in the Champions League, we beat Fulham. And by the way, we owe them because we lost 3-1 down there when we weren't invincible away from home. We are now. But we lost 3-1 down there. So we've got to make certain they're taken care of. And they are a side capable of beating. They're not as good as Bournemouth. Fulham aren't as good as Bournemouth, and they're capable of being beaten. The tougher game, obviously, would appear to be Arsenal, even with a 2-0 lead, because they'll come all guns fire, and they'll want to get to Wembley. They won't say forget about the League Cup because we're in Europe, because we're going for the title, etc., etc. Not when they want step off Europe. They'll think that's still possible, and they will think it's possible because of the last home result against Bournemouth. So it is pivotal. This is going to make a major input onto the rest of the season.
And we'll be bringing you the match preview ahead of that Arsenal game on Tuesday. And I've just asked you the question there, John, about keeping focused on the game on Saturday, but also some people will be saying, well, actually, really important, obviously, to beat Fulham on Saturday, because not only do you pick up 3 points in the race for Europe, but also you go into that game on Wednesday in high
Correct.
spirits. And that's obviously much better way to approach the game than if you're on the back of a defeat
Oh, I
against
mean,
Fulham.
like we said a few days ago, a week ago, like we said, there's no way we can approach two home games having lost to Southampton. That would have been unthinkable because the atmosphere would have been hugely different. Well, if we don't get the 3 points against Fulham, because a draw's not good enough, if we don't get the 3 points against Fulham, then it changes the atmosphere totally for the Arsenal game. Both are important. It's hard to say that Fulham's as important as Arsenal when there's a Wembley final at the end of it. But let us not underestimate what Fulham means, because that can open the door to the Champions League. And that is so massive that some people will argue that the Champions League qualification is better than getting a silver pot. I mean, I don't go down that road because I've been so long without a trophy for Newcastle. In 1969, I'm absolutely desperate. But there's some people that think Champions League qualification is more important, and I think both are important. Our targets this season have got to be twin targets. We make the Champions League and we'll win a trophy.
Yeah, indeed. Let us know in the comments if you have one which you think is more important than the other. For me, from a business point of view and growing the club, I think the Champions League is a bigger must. But also from a point of a Newcastle United fan, getting that first trophy since 1969, getting the monkey off your back, I think would actually then propel Newcastle to even greater heights. But of course, as we say, the focus has to be on Fulham. And you said there, John, Fulham are not as good a side as Bournemouth. They're still a very dangerous side. Still got some very talented players. And as they showed down at Craven Cottage back in September, and people might forget this, had Newcastle won that game, they would have gone top of the Premier League. And as it
Sure.
was on that afternoon, Fulham were the better side. They had more fight, more desire, more want that afternoon. Some really bad individual performances. Remember the goal that Raul Jimenez scored, Fabian Schär gave him the freedom to turn and shoot, which was absolutely criminal on Scher's part. And I think Eddie Howe, not one to look too far back, but he will certainly be looking at the way Fulham played, the way Fulham got the better of Newcastle that day, and been saying, lads, we can't allow that to happen. And even, John, he might look back at the goal Southampton scored and the goal they had ruled out, and again go, especially to the defence, you've been really good, but Fulham are better than Southampton. They've got better players. You cannot afford to switch off like you did against Southampton, because while Southampton, got one disallowed and didn't build on their lead, Fulham are a better side and have the players to do so. So you need to be better defensively than you were against the Saints.
Yep. But I would like to remind you, all the Newcastle players and Eddie Howe, we've won 10 out of the last 11. This isn't the team that went down to Fulham. We couldn't blow a door off its hinges from 3 yards when we went down to Fulham. We've now won 5 on the trot away from home, because everybody's on about 4 on the trot, and that's a record from 1996 or whatever. But if you include Arsenal in the League Cup, we've won the last 5 onward travels. That team is a totally different. I'm not talking about in personnel. I'm talking about in attitude, in discipline, in confidence. It's a much different side. And I think, Eddie will just pin up the match report, or his match report, from what happened at Fulham and Craven Cottage, and say, you owe them one, we owe them one. So let's get down and do something about it. Now, yes, they're a better team in Southampton, but everybody's a better team in Southampton. I mean, they are what we said they were a week ago, which is a side fighting not to become the worst in Premier League history with 6 points. Derby had 11 points. And yes, before Fulham lost to Manchester United, uh, they'd only lost one of their previous 11 in all competitions. But they weren't devastating, Andrew. They'd only won 4 of those 10. The other 6 were drawn. They lack a cutting edge. They lack a cut on any given day. Any Premier League side, apart from perhaps Southampton, can produce a performance. And yes, we've got to guard against that. But I'll keep saying, and I'll keep saying, and I'll keep saying till everybody listens, we have no reason to be afraid anymore. We have no reason to say, oh, who is it this Saturday? Oh, crikey me, it's this lot. They've got a good player there, and they've got a decent centre half, and we'll have to be careful. We've got a half a dozen top quality players, plus some very good lads like Murphy and Dubrovka that's fighting way above their weight. And yes, there will be chances like there was at Southampton and like there has been in other games. But I mean, we what hit the woodwork twice, had the one cleared off the line. If you look at it, have we got to win 5-0 every week? Or if everybody took chances, it would still be 5-2. We're actually winning, kid. We used to not do that. What 10 of the last 11 we've won. Let's go into this. I don't mean it's easy. I don't mean we can go in with cigars and deck chairs. We can't. But if we get the attitude right, we win against sides like this. The test is going to come. Arsenal will be difficult. Certainly, Liverpool will be difficult in February. Nottingham Forest, in theory, will be difficult, though I was forecasting that their bubble would burst, before it has started to burst. And let's remember, we've beaten them twice at Forest this season, once comprehensively in the league and once on a shootout in the League Cup. So things change. Can Bournemouth keep it going? Perhaps Forest are showing they're not going to. Perhaps Bournemouth will fall just short of keeping it going. The big sides we've still got to see off. Will Chelsea falter a little bit? They're looking as if they could. We've got to keep our foot on the accelerator, and we've got good enough players to do that. We had a massive blip against Bournemouth, but at the moment, having won 10 of the last 11, it looks like a blip, and that's all. And
Yeah.
we've got to confirm that by sorting out Fulham and then getting stuck into Arsenal with a 2-0 lead and home advantage. Surely it, the gods can't be that cruel to Geordies and make us avoid getting to Wembley with that sort of advantage going into the second leg. I don't think anybody in the world can be as cruel as that, can they?
Well, we don't know. As you say, we need Lady Luck to definitely be on our side and get through to that one. Just before we continue, just a plea. You've heard me bleat on quite a lot about the NordVPN subscription that you guys can take advantage of, and the link is in the podcast description box. And I'm just going to make another plea. If you've thought about signing up and taking advantage of this great offer, please do so now, because you help support the podcast. It means we can continue to do this for free. It means you get the content without having to pay for it. And you also obviously get all your devices protected for the cost of a premium cup of coffee every month. One subscription, 10 devices. You can protect yourself from the scammers and hackers out there. You can switch location as well, get a bit of a discount if you're booking a holiday and what have you. Loads of advantages to take from your NordVPN subscription. It is well worth the sign up. And as I say, you support us here and we really do appreciate it. So hit that link in the podcast description box and help keep us come to you guys for free. It is much appreciated. The game against Bournemouth, John, it was particularly bad, and Bournemouth were excellent. Do you think that serves as a bit of added motivation as well? Obviously, Eddie Howe the first message will be go out and do what you do best and win the game, race for Europe, etc. Might mention the Arsenal game and say, we need to go in and win and then continue that momentum into Wednesday. But also last time we were here, guys, we were awful. The last time we were here, we deservedly got beat. Go out there and show these fans that was a one-off. Show these fans that this is still a fortress, that visiting teams have little to no chance of picking up victory.
Without a shadow of a doubt, the biggest motivation that Eddie can give us on Saturday is exactly that. The last time you shocked every Geordie rigid because we were 9 wins out of 9. We knew Bournemouth had this great unbeaten run of 10 games. But there was still Bournemouth with 11,000 fans, and we were still Newcastle United with 52,000 fans. They were truly magnificent. We were truly awful. Now, that is the last time the Geordies, the majority of Geordies, apart from the 3,000 wonderful guys that went to the other end of the country and were rewarded with a comprehensive victory at Southampton. Our last memory of Newcastle United was being taken apart and looking as if we finished third in a two-horse race against Bournemouth. So that has got to be put right, and this is an ideal opportunity to put it right. We Every Geordie after that game was ready to say, well, that was a blip. A blip was bound to happen sometime. Perhaps we didn't expect it to be the Bournemouth match, but it was the Bournemouth match. It's got to happen sometime. Um, and as I said when we were talking before, when we had the entertainers and they went 11 wins on the trot and then got beat at home to Grimsby, they lost the next one, but then they were flying again. And we are flying again. But we talk about being a fortress. I'm trying to remember St James's Park, the other three results, but we've had three bad ones this season, three bad defeats with West Ham, Bournemouth, and whoever it was. There was and not against top quality sides. So it's been a fortress that's got a bit of a hole in the wall where the cannons fired the cannonball through, and that has got to be repaired and that has got to be stopped. Um, and having done what we did against Bournemouth, we cannot afford another hiccup in the Premier League at home because we've got some difficult fixtures ahead of us. So we've got to get the points in the bag. When you're fighting relegation, and we're absolute authorities on that because under Ashley we did it for a decade and a half. When you're fighting relegation, you pick up 3 points, you fly up the league because everybody's getting beaten at the bottom. When you're up the top and you get 3 points, you perhaps retain the position you were already in. You don't go up 3 or 4 places up at the top because everybody wins at the top and everybody loses at the bottom. So to keep pace with everyone else, we need 3 points against Fulham. And if we get 3 points against Fulham and we make Wembley, forgive me, then we go into the what remains of the season cooking. It doesn't mean we've got Champions League. It doesn't mean we've got to win a pot because Liverpool, you'd think, would overturn the one goal disadvantage against Spurs when you get Liverpool in the final. That doesn't mean you're going to win the League Cup. But anything can happen over 90 minutes. So you've got a real chance. You've got to be in it to win it. And we have, over these 4 days, against a couple of London clubs, we've got to chuck them up and send them back with a smoke.
Yeah, indeed. And if Newcastle win, you have a chance of going up to third. If Forest lose to Brighton, Forest versus Brighton's the early kick-off. Newcastle 3 p.m. and then City play. I can't quite remember who they play. Do they play? They play on the Sunday against Arsenal. So obviously all eyes will be on that as well. And if Arsenal come through that without losing any key players, but it could be a very good weekend for Newcastle United. And I just want to pinpoint a couple of danger men I think we do have to watch out for from Fulham. I think Alex Iwobi suddenly found his form. He's looking like a real player for Fulham. He's made the most progressive passes this season in the Premier League, more than the likes of Mo Salah or anybody else. And then Traore, I remember him having a really good game against Newcastle in September as well. So probably those are the two key men. Maybe Smith Rowe as well as another one to watch. But I have a feeling, John, you're going to say, look, if Tino Livramento, if Lewis Hall, if Joe Linton all have their Weetabix on Saturday morning, then those three won't stand a chance of doing what they did back in September.
Of course. And can they handle Isaac? And can they handle Gordon? And can they handle Bruno's forward running? And can they handle the Tonali shield? And then he comes out with a ball and sticks it into the front players. We can pick out a couple of players, and I suspect that to a certain extent you had a bit of a problem picking out their good players, and you did it, and well done you. But there's no problem in picking out our good players. Can they handle Isaac? Can they handle Gordon? Can they handle Bruno? Can they handle Tonali? We are asking if we can handle a couple of theirs. Can they handle half a dozen of ours?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think the point I was just making is that particularly against the Fulham side that won, Newcastle were very standoffish and they allowed those two men whose attributes are very simple to contain. They're powerful runners to just track your man. And Newcastle didn't do that day. Of course, things are different. They're in a much better kind of frame of mind, even though they could have gone top that day, but they're performing much better. And probably, John, the key difference is, and you've mentioned them there, is Mr. Sandro Tonali. The defeat against Fulham, you had Joe Linton, Bruno, and Willock as the midfield three. This time around, it's likely to be an unchanged team, the one that beat Southampton. So you'd have Tonali, Bruno, and Joe Linton, with Tonali sitting in that number 6. And we've spoken about him so often, but against Southampton again, he was
Ah,
just stand out. His goal was
phenomenal.
everything we've come to love about him. And again, he'll be key on Saturday against Fulham.
Oh, phenomenal. I mean, both defensively and offensively. You normally get a midfielder who's one or the other. You normally get a midfielder that's Gaza or Tony Green or Peter Beardsley or whatever, and then you get your defensive midfield player that that puts the barriers up and puts the fires out. This guy does both. This guy puts all the fires out. He's like Red Adair in the old day, the firefighter. He puts all the fires out and still gets time to go forward and hit front passes. And he is an all-round top player. No wonder the AC Milan fans were decimated when he left there, um, because he was the local hero and the local boy makes good sort of thing. Uh, he supported them from being a kid. The only reason he is not nationally in this country getting all the plaudits he could as the new Rodri, etc., 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 is because Isaac is scoring so many goals that in a centre forward will always get the headlines that scores a pile of goals. Isaac is taking the whole spotlight and making certain it's on him by his wonderful efforts. Tonali is going slightly under the radar, not up here, but nationally. And you know what? That's fine. Because, when I'm sick to death of hearing about who wants Isaac, uh, I don't want them to start with who wants Tonali when they discover how good Tonali is, because it's an absolute nonsense. They can stay here and win everything they want to do here. As far as I'm concerned, if we go the right way and we juggle the balls right and we get enough quality signings in the summer, not in January, but in the summer. Um, but yes, he's a wonderful, wonderful talent.
Yeah, one of the best I've seen in black and white. I compare him to Gary Speed on the Monday show, just with that engine. And I know I'll say it again. That's who he reminds me of, just in terms of the stamina that he's got. He's an absolute joy to watch. Talking of the starting 11, John, I guess there's only really two possible selection questions to ask. I mean, for what it's worth, I think it will be an unchanged side. But if we are asking about potential changes, these are the two that people will be focusing on. First off, Nick Pope on the bench against Southampton. Martin Dubravka didn't have too much to do. He made one good save from an overhead kick. Other than that, he had a relatively easy day of it. Does he keep his place between the sticks?
Yeah, you've got to have a reason to drop Dubrovka. And what's the reason? I mean, we've gone from 12th to 4th or 5th, depending on which day it is, uh, with him between the sticks. We've won 10 of the last 11. Why change the situation? It may well be that it changes before the season's finished. Who knows? Nobody knows. But I would stick with Dubrovka on Saturday, and I know the other one's Shaw and Botman, obviously, and I would stick with Shaw because if it's not broken, why fix it? And the team won and won comprehensively. You can say, did Shaw do this, that, and the other? Did he make a mistake? You can say the same with Bowman. You can say the same with goalkeepers. Defenders, and both sets of defenders, the goalie and the centre halves, can make mistakes and it can be costly. But at the moment, I don't see what you would do to change Dubrovka and Shaw or change the team. The only some would say, well, you've got two big matches in 4 days. Do you have to spread the load? Hey, spreads for butter on bread. Let's win this game, then we'll worry about the next one.
No, I agree. I think it'll be an unchanged side. Little bit tempting to say Botman for share, but I mean, it's not going to happen. So we'll stick with the unchanged
Two left
side.
footers, I think he'll go with the right footer and left footer, Andrew. I know where you're coming from, absolutely. And they did well together, Botman and Byrne. But it's two left footers, and I think he'll go right and left.
Yeah, indeed. And I guess the question to come from that then, because again, it's going to be an unchanged side. As you said, there are two big games coming up, and then the games keep coming thick and fast. Do you worry, John, slightly about the depth and depth of players, quality players who can start from the off, who might not necessarily be first choice, but they can come in and do a job for a game, 2 games, and allow that first choice player to rest? Because I look at it and think it's right, it's going to be unchanged. However, we saw against Bournemouth how fatigued they got. They have to give their all against Fulham and then Arsenal, which they always do. I mean, they're all in terms of energy, and then they go into that next game, fatigued again. Did they lose the game after the Arsenal game, which I can't quite remember what it is? What is the
Isn't
game
it?
after the
Is it
Arsenal?
Birmingham in the cup?
Yes, yeah, the FA Cup. So you might rotate there.
That's the time when you might shuffle something. You're playing a League One side, albeit a team right at the top, but you're playing a League One side. These are the 2 games you win. Then you decide, are they tired? I don't mean physically, I mean mentally. And if you do, you bring people in there. You don't start doing it for Fulham to hold people for Arsenal. You've got to win against Fulham. You've got to win against Arsenal. Then we'll sort out the Birmingham situation. But getting back to your question, I do worry about what's beneath the surface because we aren't strong on the bench. Sometimes we look strong. The bench, if we just take names only, it looks quite strong. But whenever we make changes late in the game, the subs don't have an impact anymore. We are not having an impact. Willock is strangely passive for me. Willock is passive to what he used to be. Longstaff to me looks his body language as if he's feeling it's inevitable that his days at Newcastle United are numbered, and he doesn't want that because he's a Geordie that loves Newcastle United and he's got all the cares of the world on his shoulder. Trippier, in a way, plays from memory. He's a lovely player that's been a wonderful player, but you can't hold back the passing of time. And there's a little bit rushed round now, and that's why he doesn't start. Um, Barnes, not available because of injury, but at the same time hasn't justified 37, 39 million, has he? Goals apart, he's been a little bit of a disappointment. Usula is somebody in the making. Target is not really anything for us. He could be let go. He's enough holes nailed on the left back position. So we're not. Yes, we've got Pope for the bench. Yes, we've got Botman. Yes, we've got Lewis Miley, who has looked as if he's back to what he was. But I am worried. And you've got to remember the run into the season, Andrew, which goes from February the 3rd, is the end of the transfer window. We are, and it's absolutely crucial, we make both the Champions League and the League Cup final. We are actually weaker than when the window opened. Why? Because we'll have sold Miggy Almer on to Atlanta, who was a body on the bench. I don't think he was ever a starter. I think it was right that he goes. He goes with all our love and blessing for what he's done for 6 years. But we are weaker squad wise, not team wise, because we've got one senior player out and no senior players in.
No, I agree. I think everyone can totally share that sentiment, and that was one of the questions that I got sent in to ask you, John, was whether you were concerned about the lack of activity this month, or as this email puts it, whether you can understand why they're not going to spend any money, even if Almiron does go as we expect them to do. And he may well have gone by the time this episode comes out
Oh
because
yes.
it's been recorded on.
Well, I mean, Andrew is gone. Whether
Yeah.
it's happened or it hasn't, he's gone. The terms are agreed. He's said his goodbye to the players. He's said his goodbye to the fans. He's on a plane to America. Their transfer window doesn't open until Friday. Now they can sign him any day they want, but they can't announce it until Friday. But that's why he won't be involved on Saturday with Fulham. He is gone. And that's the end of that. And it goes with all our blessings. We couldn't stand his way anymore simply because we weren't going to sign a replacement. We did that with Dubrovka because we had to, because that was a crisis situation. It's not a crisis situation with Almiron, but we are a man light. But there's no question about that. And yes, I am concerned. In an ideal world, we would sign in January because, like it or not, we are taking a calculated risk that we can make the Champions League and win the Carabao Cup, and maybe, who knows, the FA Cup without signing anybody in January. Now, that's a calculated risk. There's no question about that because we know that it we are only one step away from a disaster, which is injuries to Gordon or Bruno or Tonali or Isaac. So we are taking a risk. I can understand why they're doing it because the rules are horrendous and the sooner they change, the better. But by Jove, we can't keep selling to the public every transfer window. We've got to keep our powder dry. We've kept our powder dry so long that it's gasping for a drink of water. I mean, we've got to do, if we make the Champions League, we've got to get about 3 players minimum in this summer to bolster the squad because we found out what happened the last time we made the Champions League. We couldn't handle 4 competitions.
I mean, the word coming out of the club or people close to it suggests that this summer you will see significant investment because you have that £73 million falling off the spreadsheet, and it's kind of not a reset, but there's more freedom there. And then there is a change in the rules where it now becomes a squad cost ratio. And again, if you didn't manage to catch our interview with our finance football expert, David Powell, do go back on the YouTube channel. It'll be about 4 or 5 episodes ago now. Go back on the audio channel and tune in there. Dave does an excellent explanation of everything that's going on. He made me understand it a lot better than I did prior to speaking to him. And if you haven't caught it, do go back and have a look at that. Right, John, some stats. I know you're a big fan of stats, right? You ready for this?
Of course, go on.
Well, actually, the first one's going to be a bit of trivia. So I'm going to test your trivia, okay? I'm going to test your knowledge. Alexander Isak needs just one more goal to become the leading Swedish goal scorer of all time in the Premier League. Do you know who currently holds it?
I mean, first and foremost, do we care?
Just a
Because
bit of fun.
yeah, oh yes, absolutely. But I'm saying we want him to score another 10 goals this season, and we don't care if he's Swedish, if he's from the Outer Hebrides, he's from Indonesia. We're just grateful. And but yes, that's a good question. Is Swede in this country?
Would you like a clue?
Go on.
He played for Arsenal. He wasn't a forward. He was more like of a kind of a winger. Played for
Lundbeck, or how you pronounce it,
yeah.
Lundbeck.
I'll give you that. Freddie Ljungberg is the
Yeah,
current
that's who I was
holder.
thinking.
And the other stat that I'm going to give you is probably one that's going to come back and bite me on the behind, but I'm going to read out anyway.
Go on.
Newcastle United unbeaten in the last 8 Premier League home games against Fulham. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. Well, it'll be 9, won't it?
Love that, John. Love it. Yes, it will be 9. Fingers crossed. Come on, then. You've just given it away there, but give me your prediction then.
I have. Lesson learned against Bournemouth, first and foremost. Normal service resumed at Southampton. Won 10 of the last 11. It was a blip. It was a surprise against Bournemouth. You're not going, and it would be another. Let's be truthful. It would be a surprise if we didn't beat Fulham. Well, we had enough of surprises, us Geordies. We don't want any more. Thank you very much. The boys have learnt the lesson. We will carry too much power, too much high press, and too much energy for Fulham. Newcastle win. It's just a matter of how many. It may be 2-0, it may be 3-1, but Newcastle win.
I'm going to go for Newcastle United win. I'm going to go 2-0 is my prediction. I think they will win. I think it'll be a close game. I think they've got the players Fulham to really make Newcastle United have to work hard for the victory. But a good old 3 p.m. kickoff, the crowd behind you, and then obviously there might be a bit of a party atmosphere if they're 2-0 up, maybe with 20 minutes to go, and anyhow can hopefully make some substitutions and see the game out and rest some key players for Wednesday's game against Arsenal. But as we said, focus on Fulham. Hopefully it is a victory. Thanks to John, as always, for providing the match preview. Thank you to you guys for watching and listening. Hit thumbs up if you're on YouTube. Share the pod amongst your Newcastle United supporting friends and family. If you're on the audio channel, please leave us a rating and review. And for myself and John, we will see you on Tuesday.